Rayner, everybody. Angela Rayner vowed to fight for her constituents as a backbench MP for how long, I wonder. After infighting this week, the ex-Deputy Prime Minister urged Labour to unite and end arrogant tittle-tattle. Former Deputy PM calls on Labour to end the arrogant tittle.
Labour leadership plot rumours. Anonymous sources are claiming Angela Rayner is plotting to overthrow Keir Starmer. Rayner's people are calling it total rubbish, and somewhere in Westminster, the men in grey suits are apparently discussing how to parachute Andy Burnham back into Parliament to save Labour from itself. Welcome to the Labour Party in 2025, where the plotting is constant, the denials are furious, and nobody can agree on whether there's actually a crisis or whether we're all just watching political fan fiction play out in real time. So grab your metaphorical popcorn because we're about to dive into the latest round of Labour leadership speculation, anonymous briefings, categorical denials, and the kind of Westminster intrigue that makes Game of Thrones look like a friendly game of Monopoly. This is either the beginning of a genuine Labour civil war or the most overblown political gossip of the year, and honestly, at this point, it's genuinely hard to tell which. All right, let's start with the claims themselves because they're absolutely spectacular in their detail. According to The Telegraph, citing anonymous sources naturally, Angela Rayner is reportedly getting her ducks in a row for a leadership bid against Keir Starmer. And we're not talking about some vague future possibility here, we're talking about active plotting, cabinet positions being offered in exchange for support, union backing being lined up, and the whole 9 yards of political conspiracy. The source claims Rayner is working to get the support of MPs and that the unions will back her and help her. Which, if true, would be quite the operation, considering she's supposedly doing all this while publicly being part of the government and representing her Ashton-underlined constituency. That's some impressive multitasking, plotting to overthrow your leader while simultaneously attending cabinet meetings and constituency surgeries. It's the political equivalent of planning a surprise party for someone while sitting next to them at dinner. The anonymous source also mentions that Rayner is part of the center-left Tribune pressure group, which could be used as a leadership vehicle for a future candidate. The group currently has 70 members and is expected to reach 100, which sounds very official and organized, except for the minor detail that being part of a Labour pressure group isn't exactly unusual or suspicious. That's like saying someone's plotting a takeover because they're a member of the local gym. Sure, they could be getting in shape for something, but they could also just be trying to stay fit. Now here's where the story gets its dramatic backstory. Rayner was forced to resign from her roles as Deputy Prime Minister and Housing Secretary back in September, which itself was a massive political earthquake that shook Westminster. The exact circumstances of her departure have been the subject of much speculation, with various theories floating around about whether she jumped or was pushed, and what it all means for Labour's internal dynamics. But according to these new claims, Rayner isn't going quietly into the political wilderness. She's supposedly ready for a dramatic comeback. And some members of the Labour Party apparently favor her as a leadership candidate over other potential contenders like Health Secretary Wes Streeting. Which raises the question, if she was forced out in September, why would party members now be backing her for leader? Either she's incredibly good at political rehabilitation, or the people who wanted her gone in September have had a dramatic change of heart. The timing of all this is fascinating because it comes right after Clive Lewis, the MP for Norwich South, became the first Labour MP to publicly call for Keir Starmer to be replaced. But here's a twist. Lewis isn't backing Rayner, he's backing Andy Burnham, the Greater Manchester mayor, who isn't even in Parliament anymore. Lewis told Channel 4 that Labour grandees and the men in grey suits should seriously think about how to get Burnham back into Parliament so he can become the next Prime Minister. So we've got one MP openly calling for the leader to go but backing someone who isn't an MP, while anonymous sources claim another former senior figure is secretly plotting a comeback, and everyone's denying everything while the rumor mill goes into absolute overdrive. It's political chaos dressed up as strategic maneuvering, and nobody seems quite sure what's actually happening versus what people want to happen or what makes for good gossip. Now before we go any further, let's address the elephant in the room. Rayner's team has categorically denied all of this. A source close to her called the claims total rubbish and obviously false, adding that amidst all the stirring and silly games, Angela is focused on representing her local community and ensuring that the priorities she championed in government are delivered in full. That's not a weak denial or a no comment. That's a full-throated rejection of the entire story. Which leaves us with a fascinating question. Is this genuine plotting that's been exposed and is now being denied, or is this complete fabrication being spread by people with their own agendas? In Westminster, both scenarios are equally plausible. Politicians plot against their leaders all the time, and politicians also get falsely accused of plotting by rivals who want to damage them. The truth could be anywhere on that spectrum. What we do know for certain is that Keir Starmer is not exactly riding high in the polls right now. Recent polling shows that satisfaction with the Prime Minister is at the lowest level recorded since 1977. 1977, that's almost 50 years ago. That's before most people watching this video were born. And it gets worse for Labour. Satisfaction with Chancellor Rachel Reeves is at the lowest since 1976, just over a month before her autumn budget. Those numbers are catastrophic for a government that barely's been in power for any length of time. Usually you get at least a honeymoon period where people are willing to give the new government a chance before the polls turn negative. But Labour seems to have skipped the honeymoon entirely and gone straight to the divorce proceedings. And when a government is polling that badly, speculation about leadership challenges isn't just gossip. It's a rational response to an existential threat to the party's electoral prospects. So let's think about this logically. If you're a Labour MP, looking at those poll numbers, if you're watching your leader and chancellor post historically low satisfaction ratings, if you're hearing constant complaints from constituents about the government's performance, what do you do? Do you stick with the current leadership and hope things turn around? Or do you start thinking about alternatives, having quiet conversations with colleagues, and testing the waters for potential challengers? The answer is almost certainly that some MPs are doing exactly that. It would be weird if they weren't. But there's a massive difference between MPs quietly discussing their concerns and a full-blown organized plot with cabinet positions being offered in exchange for support, union backing being lined up, and the whole 9 yards of political conspiracy. These anonymous briefings become problematic because, without knowing who the source is or what their agenda might be, we can't assess the reliability of their claims. Are they someone genuinely in the know about Rayner's plans? Are they a rival trying to damage her by making her look disloyal? Are they someone close to Starmer trying to flush out potential plotters by forcing them to deny involvement? Or are they just someone who's heard rumors and is presenting speculation as fact? Westminster runs on anonymous briefings, and that means it also runs on a mixture of genuine intelligence, strategic misinformation, wishful thinking, and complete bullocks. The challenge for anyone trying to understand what's actually happening is figuring out which category any particular story falls into. Let's talk about the Andy Burnham angle because that adds another layer to complexity to all this. Clive Lewis's public call for Burnham to replace Starmer is fascinating for several reasons. First, it's public rather than anonymous, which makes it more significant in some ways. Lewis is actually putting his name to his criticism rather than hiding behind sources say. That takes guts, even if it probably means his career in Starmer's Labour is effectively over. Second, Burnham isn't even an MP, which makes the whole thing slightly surreal. You can't become Prime Minister if you're not in Parliament, which means Lewis is calling for a series of events that would require Burnham to find a seat, win a by-election, get elected leader, and then presumably lead the party to victory in a general election. That's not a plan, that's a fever dream. But the reason Lewis might be backing Burnham over someone like Rayner is timing. The Telegraph report mentions that an early leadership contest would favor candidates like Rayner and disadvantage people like Burnham precisely because he'd need time to get back into Parliament. So if you're Lewis and you genuinely believe Starmer needs to go, but you don't want it to happen right now because your preferred candidate isn't ready, you're in a difficult position. This is where the intrigue gets really complex because different factions within Labour want different things at different times. Some might want Starmer gone immediately and would back whoever could win a quick leadership contest. Others might want change, but only when their preferred candidate is positioned to win. And still others might not want change at all and are happy to let rumors swirl while Starmer stays in post. The Tribune group that Rayner's part of adds another dimension to all this. Pressure groups within political parties are completely normal, but they also serve as ready-made power bases for leadership challengers. If you've got 70 MPs in a group and you're one of the senior figures, that's potentially 70 MPs you could reach out to for support. But again, being part of a pressure group isn't evidence of plotting, it's just evidence of being politically active within your party. What's really telling is the state of Labour's poll numbers, because that's the fuel for all this speculation. If Starmer was riding high, if Labour was 20 points ahead, if everyone was happy with the government's performance, none of these rumors would gain traction. Politicians don't plot against successful leaders because there's no point. You only get this kind of speculation when things are going badly enough that a change seems both desirable and possible. And things are definitely going badly for Labour right now. Those historically low satisfaction ratings aren't just bad, they're existentially threatening. A government can survive being unpopular if there's no clear alternative, but if MPs start believing there's someone who could do better, that's when things get dangerous for any leader. The question is whether Angela Rayner is actually positioned